Now, if you've done a lot of low-wage jobs, entry-level work like I have, entry-level like warehouse work, order picking, the maybe final inspection and manufacturing, or basic machine operation and manufacturing, that kind of level work, basic assembly. You might be familiar with the person, who shows up, who always manages to do just enough not to get fired. And it's not even because they're lazy. They tend to be low intelligence, low IQ. And whatever they show up to do, they just kind of plod away at it piecemeal. They don't even know how to innovate. They don't know how to improve. No matter how much the boss yells at them, harasses them, whatever, they don't get any better. And for them, like almost every activity in life is just this plodding. You show up and you plod until it's done. And these people may work somewhere and get fired and wonder why they get fired and don't understand why they was getting yelled at, why always being hassled. Or they manage to just do just enough to not get fired. I know there's people who conspire to do just enough to not get fired, whether it's out of laziness or out of spite or some sort of political or social motive, willful foot dragging or whatever. I'm talking about someone who doesn't have any of those motives. Just their perception of reality is very simple, very limited. Whether they're showing up to pack items into boxes at the warehouse, or operate their vehicle, or even tie their shoes in the morning. Everything is this slow, tedious crawl. Everything is the crawling through, like swimming through molasses, swimming through chilled molasses every day, and they don't know any better. And while that may be frustrating to witness or to work with such people, when life gets shitty, let's say, I don't know, I was thinking about this, the United States is at war with Iran, and they're blocking the Strait of Hormuz. The price of oil is going to go up dramatically. There is an ambulance behind me. I'm going to pull over and let it go. They don't have their lights on yet, but I feel like they're about to flip them on for some sort of call, so they just forgot to. So I'm just going to let them go. In any case, and so, maybe there's we have, fuel rationing or fuel restrictions or economic restrictions, and life becomes extra tedious. But for these people, there's really no change, because everything for them is tedious. Their whole life is tedious. These are people whom they don't really have hobbies, because everything's equally tedious. It's not playing a video game or learning to play a video game or whatever, learning to play a board game. Everything is equal amount of work. It's a slog. Life is one continuous slog. So whether you're playing a video game or stuffing boxes or working an assembly line or whatever, changing tires or whatever it is, everything's the same to them. It's just one tedious slog of existence. And so I think emotionally, such people are probably going to do a lot better than a lot of us are used to our innovation being met with reward and our hard work being met with reward. Because when, the economic system takes a big downturn, whatever, people get laid off, and of course the government imposes restrictions and rationing or whatnot, then we're going to get frustrated. Whereas, this dullard, he has an IQ, 75, he just putters along at everything. It really doesn't matter, and just happily, perhaps even happily, just putters along and can't figure out why people are yelling at him. It's not going to be much difference for that person, because life is always a slog. Now I'm repeating myself. So am I saying that it's better to be, kind of dumb? Hey, James. No, I don't think it's better to be dumb. It's better. It's believe me, it's better to be intelligent than to not be. But there's a silver lining to being you know, to being a low intelligence person, to have very low awareness. Just, you know, I used to work with a guy who had no. We used to talk about the Power Jacks have like a turtle mode for slow and rabbit for fast, and everything he did was in turtle mode. Everything just stuck in turtle mode. The only time he wasn't, either when he was hungry, he'd go to the vending machines, or whenever he saw a pretty lady, or almost any lady, suddenly he'd perk up, he'd have energy, and he'd be like, "Hey, how's it going? I really like what you're wearing, blah, blah, blah." He ended up having to do sexual harassment training, because he ended up, there was some sort of complaint against him, but like, totally oblivious, can't even figure out why he was being punished, because he was just so, he's just so dumb. That's all it was. And being, okay, let me clarify, unless you think I'm preaching hate against dumb people. I'm not, okay? You know, by way of metaphor, like, look, I have a quad core 3 gigahertz processor in my head, and I have, you know, it has 64 megs of high-speed RAM on board, and then I have I can access another 128 gigs of RAM, my general purpose RAM, and I have a massive hard drive. That's the computer inside my head. And this guy had, he had an Intel 286 machine with 1 megabyte of RAM and a 20 megabyte hard drive. Like, that's all he's got. Like, he can't help, the fact that that's all he has to work with, right? So, and he was happy. He was genuinely happy. Almost every day, that man was happy. Except for the time when the boss would be chewing him out for, like, just sucking at his job. He was happy. And so, yeah, whatever. Someone's probably, if anyone watches this, they're going to get in the comments and give me some quote from the Bible, where, the knowledge multiplies sorrow, whatever. Yeah, I know it does. And imagine that, too. Like, here I am, I'm contemplating the forces of evil that occupy the positions of power in the U.S. government, and in finance, and in industry, and in whatever, all the different major institutions, right? Well, he just, that doesn't really matter. He's going to go, what? What do we have to do? Okay. Do. And he just carries on, tediously slogging through life, until bedtime, and being perfectly happy with it. And I've often wondered, I used to think that maybe, humanity would be better off if people were smarter. Like, if the low end of the IQ, if the left side of the bell curve, if you plotted an IQ, was like 140, like if I was considered retarded, and then the middle, of the bell curve would be like, 180, 190, 200, and then the high end, 230, 240, right? I thought humanity would be better off, but, like, we'd all be miserable. Like, he's, the guy I was using an example, like, he's dumb and happy, where in that world, with all the technological and social advances that would come with high intelligence amongst everybody, I would be dumb and miserable. Because I'd be too smart to be happy in my situation. So here I am, I'd have an IQ of 140 and feel miserable. I'm like, man, I'm so stupid. I can hardly comprehend this world that I live in that's been built for people much smarter than me. Where he just, happy-go-lucky, IQ 70-ish. and be content. That's all I gotta say. Just to ramble about intelligence and happiness. Thanks for watching.